Hello everyone, and welcome back to another short sermon. Today I'm going to talk about Psalm chapter 1 verse 5. And then let me quote that verse for a moment. We're talking about the wicked people, as in the last sermon. Alright, the verse says, "Therefore," now when you see the word therefore, it means, for this cause, this happened. It gives a reason, a turning point. An example of this is the book of Romans. There were 16 chapters in that book, and the first 11 chapters give you a doctrine. But starting at chapter 12, it says, "Therefore." So it divides the book of Romans into two sections. The first 11 chapters of doctrine, and the final 5 chapters of application. So, pay attention to these road signs when you see the word and, but, for, therefore. Pay extra attention to those words because they give meaning and direction. Therefore, the wicked will not survive. Now, what does that mean? Well, everyone's going to die. Even the righteous people are going to die on earth. So what does it mean the wicked will not survive? The next line says, the judgment. So the wicked are not going to survive the judgment. And we know what this means from the surface. But what does it mean to not survive? It means to die, but everyone's going to die. So what's the difference? Well, in a sense, everyone's going to live forever because the soul will live forever, their eternal state. So how can someone just not survive the judgment? Well, if they do survive the judgment, they will enter heaven, alright? If they do not survive the judgment, they'll perish. So the difference I see here is that for the righteous people, they will live forever, but for the wicked people, they will perish forever. So that's the difference. And you gotta figure, they're gonna burn up alive, so it does not make sense to say not survive. But there's life in heaven. There is no life where the wicked are going, okay? But there is life in heaven. That's why it says they will not survive the judgment. And let me tell you this. Everyone is going to go through the judgment. Whether they die or whether Jesus comes back. Whichever one comes first. Alright, so some people have already went through the judgment when they died. Alright, read the morality play of every man. You will see that every man lives in worldly pleasure. God gave it to them because He loves them. However, they feed on that worldly pleasure and sin, and they forget about God. Now, God is upset about this. He made mankind as the apex of His creation. He gave man the authority to alter the earth as they wish. However, they live in sin. They know not their God. So God sends death to every man, His mighty messenger. And what does death do? He summons up every man to give an account of how he lived his life on earth. So every man, including you, when you die, or when Jesus returns, you're going to have to give an account of how you lived your life on earth. By this, you will have to keep an accounting book with you when you turn 12 or 20, and then write down all your good deeds and write down all your bad deeds. Alright, and then you'll give the book to God and He'll read it, or you have to say them. But no one remembers all the good and bad deeds. So I do not know exactly how someone is going to confess everything they've done right and wrong because they do not remember it. Or maybe it will just come to their memory when they meet God. I do not know. But let's see here. Everyone is going to have to face the judgment. Now we think, well, we have already passed the judgment because we are righteous. True. We are forgiven. We are forgiven of every act that we may have done wrong to someone when we ask for forgiveness. That's why Jesus came to earth. However, there is a verse in the Bible that says that everyone is going to have to face the judgment and give an account of what he done to his own body, whether good or bad. So it does not say what they done to other people. It says what they done to themselves. So we may not have to give an account for what we've done to other people, but we will have to give an account for what we've done to ourselves. There is a difference between sinning against other people and sinning against the body. Okay? No one sins against their own body. However, when they do, they corrupt it, and they cannot really be forgiven about that. You know? So, I guess the righteous people will only have to face that kind of judgment, and then they can enter heaven. However, the wicked people are going to face judgment, and then they're just going to perish. I'm not trying to confuse you, I'm just trying to explain this verse to you. Let me just jump to the second half of this verse. And sinners will not be in the community of the righteous. Now, what does that mean? Well, as with our time on earth, the wicked are not going to be in the same building as the righteous people. In these current days, saying that we are not yet in the last days, but in this current generation, the good and the bad are mixed together. We see Christians and non-Christians in the same church building. Now I say that in the last days, they're going to be separated. As we see the sinners and the righteous dining in the same room together, walking in the same streets together, we cannot tell the difference between who's a sinner and who's righteous because we cannot tell if someone's wicked just by looking at them. Only God knows that. But one day God is going to separate the sinners from the righteous, and sinners will no longer be in the area around where the righteous people are at. Recall the story of the Israelites and the Egyptians. The Israelites had light where they lived, while the Egyptians lived in darkness. So if you're wondering, how is it going to get better for the Christians and worse for the world? Well, there's your answer. They're going to be separated from each other. When this issue's over and the world turns out better for the Christians, those wicked people are not going to be part of it. They're going to be somewhere else. Conditions are going to be different for the wicked people, but we're going to live in protection. Alright? So that's how it's going to get better for the church and worse for the world. They're going to be separated. Now, I guess I'm just going to end the sermon right here because I still have notes, but I cannot mention all of them right now. Although I do wonder, is everyone going to face the judgment one by one? Or are they going to face the judgment all together? I always thought it was one by one. But there's so many people in the earth that it will probably take eternity for each person to confess all their sins and good deeds. So, I don't know how that judgment's going to handle out. Only God does.